Joining me now, live now from Stanford, California, is Arash Aramesh, who's a National Security Analyst at Stanford Law School. Thank you very much for joining us. Is this a turning point, do you think, for US-Iran relations?
It's not a turning point, no, and it's premature to call it that. However, after 33 years of no official diplomatic contact, now that the Iranian Minister of Foreign Affairs and the American Secretary of State are willing to sit at the same table, it's a big deal. Again, it's not a turning point, but it's a big deal. And we have to see what comes out of this. It's good to see Catherine Ashton, the European Union Foreign Policy Chief, Javad Zarif, the Iranian, and Secretary of State John Kerry, his counterpart, the American counterpart, to all be at the same table. There were reports last minute that after all the delegates left the room, Secretary John Kerry and Minister Javad Zarif stayed behind and actually exchanged some words. So that's a very positive development.
Indeed, and we heard the same thing about a meeting between those two leaders. What does Iran want to get out of all of this? Because they've already said that they want to be treated as a significant regional power.
Several years now, especially the past 2 to 3 years of backbreaking sanctions, global international sanctions against Iran because of its nuclear program, have brought the Iranian government to its knees. President Rouhani, who won by a good solid majority last summer, early summer, his main rhetoric, his main campaign promise was to make the economy work and address people's economic concerns. And the first thing he had to address, and he has to address, is to make sure that the international community and all these global sanctions are lifted. Part of Iran's ailments, economic ailments, aside from mismanagement domestically, are directly due to economic sanctions on its banking sector, on its oil production. So in order to make sure that the Iranian economy can somehow breathe and take a fresh breath, they have to make sure that they cooperate with the international community on this nuclear program to lift the sanctions. That is their main goal. Now, but they have to make sure that they address Western concerns, and Western concerns about enrichment, weaponization. All these matters are going to be on the table, and it's up to the Iranian delegation to meet the demands of the international community.
Okay, let's talk a little bit more about the demands of the international community. What exactly do those 6 world powers want to see from Iran? Well, back in February, they went on record with a list of requirements that would be met with the easing of sanctions. Iran should stop enriching uranium to 20%. That's the level that experts say it's possible to create weapons-grade material. Iran should ship out some of its stockpiles of nuclear material and close down its underground enrichment facility. So, Arash, how realistic is it that those sort of demands would be met?
All these demands boil down to 2 components: verification and inspection. Verification without inspection and inspection without verification is not possible. So what's going to happen is that the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, and the P5+1 are going to demand access to certain sites, some of which are sensitive military sites, such as Parchin, and access to Iranian nuclear scientists to be interviewed. And the Iranians are not going to let that happen. At least they've been very stubborn, because they say that by allowing their nuclear scientists to be identified and to be interviewed, well, the U.S. and Israel will go out and assassinate them. There's a lot of distrust on both sides of the table. But again, the key demand is this: making sure that they don't enrich more than 20%, keep it below that. Nuclear waste is gotten out of Iran, and importantly, being able to verify these factors and these elements that, in fact, they are taking place. But they got to build trust, and without it, it's going to be hard to go from point A to point B.
Indeed, that's Arash Aramesh joining us from Stanford Law School. Thank you so much for your thoughts. A rise